Thanks very much, everyone, for joining. My name is Connor Kelly. I'm a junior consultant here at Turner and Townsend, and we are joined today by Ramin, Sally, and Rahul, who'll be leading the session today on funding solar retrofits with Allume and Alpha Living. This is a retrofit information support and expertise event, which is fully funded by the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero and delivered by Turner and Townsend. Okay, so I'm just now going to pass over to our hosts today. So to start with, I'd like to ask Sally to introduce herself, her role as the Chief Executive at Alpha Living Housing. So Sally, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Thank you, Connor. You've kind of done it for me, actually. My name is Sally. I have been the Chief Executive of Alpha Living only since April, so I'm almost 6 months in, and have picked this work up from another colleague who was previously leading on that, which I'll talk about later on. Alpha Living has completed 3 solar retrofits this year with Allume and Eco Approach. So my perspective is very much from the receiving providers point of view.
Hi everyone, I'm Rahul Satyan, Head of Retrofit for Eco Approach company. I work with Eco Approach with regards to managing all the Eco4 schemes, SHF, local bonds, and all other able to pay jobs what we're doing. I have got an experience of 5 years working into the eco industry and 3 to 4 years working under SHF and lots. My main expertise is to check how many properties we can deliver under each funding and how we can blend the schemes. Thank you.
Connor, good afternoon. Hello, everyone. My name is Ramin Hakimov. I'm Head of Business Development at Allume Energy. I work closely with social housing providers across the UK, and my passion is really to contribute what you do in this space. So helping you deliver successful retrofit schemes, secure funding, and eventually create a positive impact on residents' lives. I also speak to government and funding bodies and making sure your needs and expectations are reflected in policies and funding streams. So in short, I'm here to build bridges and contribute to your decarbonisation strategies across the sector. Next slide, Connor, so we can start. So our goal is simple in this webinar. So in today's masterclass, you will leave with practical knowledge, case studies, and tools that help you deliver your next retrofit project with confidence. So here's what we are aiming to achieve today and why it matters to you. The SolShare. So I'll introduce you to the SolShare solar system, explain how it unlocks opportunities for hard to treat blocks of flats, and show you how it can be applied under different funding streams to maximize benefits for both landlords and for your residents. And funding will explore the current funding streams with a focus on Eco4, where Allume can secure substantial funding to upgrade your properties with multiple measures at a little or no cost to you. So you will also gain the visibility of how we contribute to decarbonisation strategies while ensuring quality, compliance, and speed in delivery. And then we'll listen to Sally and learn Alpha Living's experience with working with Allume on Eco4 funded schemes, providing practical insights into challenges, impacts on residents' lives, and their future plans. And lastly, we'll learn about the case studies and delivery, and Rahul will showcase the real-world case studies and explain how these projects have been delivered successfully, highlighting strategies to build trust, boost resident participation, identify eligible properties, and deliver upgrades at no cost to yourselves. Next slide, please. Next one. So traditionally, housing providers have focused their warm homes applications on individual houses most of the times, often leaving blocks of flats, leaving apartment blocks aside. That's not surprising, and that's understandable because blocks have long been considered as hard to treat properties. Why is that? Because of the challenges of Fabric First, so you can't really copy and pass the Fabric First measure to all blocks of flats equally, and resident access, leaseholder issues, approvals, and until recently, a lack of scalable, practical retrofit solution to upgrade blocks of flats. So this is exactly why Allume's SolShare makes difference. It's the only technology in the world enables the rooftop solar system to be shared by multiple flats within the same block, So with sole share, housing providers can easily retrofit blocks in a cost-effective, straightforward, and minimally disruptive way. Deliver 20–50% of energy bill reductions for residents, so helping them tackle full poverty, boosting EPC ratings by 5 to 20, 5 to 30 SAT points, depending upon the size of the system and the kilowatt peak allocation to each individual flat. And also we typically see EPC discrepancy across blocks of flats, so the sole share can solve that problem, mainly ground and top floor units that typically score lower EPC ratings. And also supply solar to landlord and communal areas, which is one of the advantages of the sole share system. So let's give you an example. If you have a block of 12 units, you can connect the sole share unit to 12 residential units alongside connecting the sole share unit to your landlord communal supply. So they're cutting costs for the shared services. And also it drives significant carbon reductions across your housing stock. And all these benefits from a price perspective, because this is typically what housing providers are keen to understand, actually, how much is the cost of the system. It's around 2 to 4K per flat for the turnkey solution price. So to give you an example, if you have a block of 15, then you will be potentially looking at 40, 50, 55 grand for the turnkey solution sole share system. So that includes PV panels, scaffolding, inverter, sole share, alongside wiring, cabling, labor costs, and everything. So it's a working, running price and easy and affordable energy efficiency measure for yourselves. It's important to highlight, though, it's a scalable modular solution. So if you have a block of 45 units, then you will need to have 3 sole shares and 3 inverters, because you can connect 1 sole share unit to 15 individual residents. Next slide, please, Connor. This is the Soul Center platform, one of the services that we do offer at Allume, alongside supplying the sole share unit as a hardware solution. So Rahul will explain, will showcase some case studies from Woolwich Court and Auckland's, and you will have the visibility how much actually residents have been saving since the commissioning date. So the Soul Center gives you access to our platform, all the energy data, all the data acquisition and live monitoring functionality. You can look at on an individual flat basis, and also you can look at the whole building level in terms of understanding how much each resident save, potential earnings savings from the Smart Export Guarantee, what's being imported from grid, what's being consumed by solar energy, and what's been exported as well. And this is usually £360 per sole share per year. It's not per flat, it's per sole share per year. But it's also important to highlight, though, it's not mandatory. It's just the optional additional service. So with the One Soul Center platform, you can have the visibility and see hundreds and if not thousands of flats from one platform. Next slide, please. Another one. So I would like to talk about different funding streams and how sole share being utilized under different funding streams, and a bit of stats for you. Some figures. We're currently working with Wythenshawe Community Housing, Brunel Care, Lewisham Council, New Forest District Council, London Borough of Newham, and a few others under Wave 3 and under 2.2. So a few reasons why the landlords are seeing major benefits from the social solar systems. First of all, there's a cost cap, as you're all aware. There's a cost cap, and with only 2 to 4K allocated per flat, you can achieve a massive improvement and uplift your EPC budget. So you can easily achieve the C target and quickly and cost effective. So basically 10K from yourselves, which is not always 50% match funding, which I hear from housing providers that typically you allocate 60 or 70% of your budget actually. So let's say you have a 20K budget with 50% match funding. You can just allocate 10–15% of your whole budget to upgrade your blocks of flats easily, affordably, and in a very less intrusive way with a sole share, and achieve all your EPC targets while also helping your residents save significant energy bill reductions. And EPC discrepancy, our first ever Wave 2.1 scheme actually was in Manchester for your housing group. We upgraded 69 flats in 4 blocks, And the main reason why the sole share being utilized was they had EPC discrepancies. So let's say some of the flats were SAP 50, another flat was on a SAP band of SAP 55, another one SAP 60. So with the sole share, when installers commission the system, you can allocate tailorable kilowatt peak to each individual flat to achieve the EPC target that's required by your end. So you can solve this EPC discrepancy with the sole share. And that's one of the reasons why it's been widely utilized on the different waves of warm home social housing fund. And also another important aspect here, if you have a commitment of spending 30, 40 or 50% of funding in year one, you can easily and affordably achieve that target, that commitment with the sole share. Just put the scaffolding and the panels on the roof, no hardware installation in each individual flat. That's another advantageous point of sole share. It's a very minimal resident engagement or no resident engagement at all. The only resident engagement session happens when the electricity meters are in each individual flat. So at that point, installer needs to run the AEC cable to the consumer board. But we're not talking about any kind of hardware installation in flats. So that's why there is a very minimal disruption to the another benefit is immediate savings for residents. So they can typically see around minimum 15-20% bill reductions from the first month. And another important element here is, which is good news for all housing landlords, we have partnered with the Next, and we have got exclusive sole share smart export guarantee rate, which is the highest available price in the market, 16.5 pence for any surplus energy, which gives you an extra opportunity for extra earnings. So landlords can claim on behalf of residents, or your residents can claim this smart export guarantee earnings. So you can utilize it as a part of revenue stream to outweigh the cost of the service charge, or as a reinvestment for PV measures or for Sol Center for maintenance. So really, it's up to your call. So one of the schemes at the moment we're delivering in Manchester now, Wave 3 scheme for Withamshire Community Housing Group. We're starting as of next month, 192 units across 8 schemes. So we are upgrading the whole street. And in future, we're planning to organize business visit to that properties as well. Next slide, please, Donna. Another one. So I would like to talk about Eco4 funding. First of all, quite a few clients of mine asked, Ramin, we thought Eco is not for social housing. So I can confirm that you can benefit significantly from the Eco4 funding. And Allume is acting not just a supplier here, but more than a supplier, because so far we've secured more than 8 million of Eco4 funding for a few housing associations and local authorities to upgrade their electrically heated property. So from an eligibility perspective, I'm sure that the Rahul will elaborate on this a lot. So if you have electrically heated properties, E, F, and G rated, so potentially we can secure funding and upgrade your properties with multiple measures at no cost to you. So there's a zero value contract, or with a minimal contribution, depends. But most of the times it comes at no cost to you. But because Sole share is an innovation measure which approved by Ofgem as one of only 3 technologies that comes with a significant uplift, 45%, that enables D-rated social housing properties fundable under Eco as well. And we can talk about Auckland specifically. When we had Auckland scored, 90% of the building were C-rated. The remaining were D-rated. So we even made some C-rated properties to be fully funded, but I will leave it to Rahul to talk about that. So a few client names here and a few stats for you to read. I would like to say that just one takeaway is Allume is more than a supplier. You can trust us, and we're more than happy to contribute and secure more funding and upgrade your properties, as we believe an Eco is a streamlined way of delivering retrofit schemes for your properties. I will just now hand over, so the last slide, Connor, the very last slide. I would like to briefly talk about our journey with Alpha Living. As Sally mentioned, my point of contact was Zoe Carmichael, Director of Asset Management, who just recently left. So our journey is an interesting one because the sole share was specified in a new build scheme, And then Zoe wanted to explore how we can incorporate this solution to the retrofit scheme, so existing properties. And then we identified a pilot scheme, which was called the Mount. Well, then I realized that actually these are electrically heated properties. Then I made partnership with Beyond Next and also Rahul, Eco Approach, and we secured funding and upgraded already 3 schemes here. So from self-funded pilot to eco-funded schemes at this point of time. And now I will hand over to Sally to talk about Alpha Living. Thank you.
Thanks, Ramin. Next slide, please, Connor. So we are a very tiny organisation. We're not even big enough to be actively regulated. We've got 960 units of all sheltered and extra care housing in the northwest. Well, comes across to Yorkshire actually as well. So it's a northern tiny housing association. And one of our sort of key drivers, as well as sort of getting the EPC ratings up, was our concern for our elderly tenants who are very much at risk of fuel poverty and energy debts. So that was a lot of Zoe's driver to actually do this or start this piece of work. So as Ramin has said, our Director of Asset Management, Zoe Carmichael, who's now moved on, she's just starting work with Great Places actually. She was really instrumental in pushing this forward and did a brilliant job. So we had 3 different sheltered housing schemes in Winsford and on the Wirral, so a total of 108 flats within those schemes. All sort of, I don't know, probably 50s, 60s built properties, getting a little bit tired, going to be the ones that for Alpha were potentially the risk in terms of low EPCs. They have all now been fully completed. All of those 3 blocks of flats were with full electrical heating with low EPC ratings and have now sort of been moved considerably, sort of a couple of grades up on sort of every flat. So next slide, please. And this is really just a slide to sort of think about, if we'd have known this when we started, what would we have done potentially slightly differently? And the first key point is that consistency of colleagues during the project. So as I said, Zoe left the business a couple of months ago, and that was Alpha's risk of a single point of failure. So we're a very small organisation, so don't have many people doing different things. We haven't got huge teams of people, all of whom are involved in stuff. So when Zoe left, it was like, okay, who's going to pick this particular piece of work up? And I've picked it up as far as these webinars are concerned, but trying really hard to get other colleagues on that journey and on board with us. So if you are considering this work and you are a small organisation, make sure it's not just down to one particular person who, when they leave, it sort of becomes an issue in terms of picking up the pieces. We have a number of colleagues. So we have 1 colleague on each site. We have a development manager, which is a scheme manager or a support worker for other similar terms. We really needed to get them on sort of board to understand what this was all about, what they needed to know, what was going to be the outcome and the results, and you know what this soul share panel was, all of this stuff. So colleagues on this call have been very patient with me explaining and kind of improving my understanding of what we've been doing. But actually those colleagues on site, it's absolutely key that they understand what's happening, when it's happening, what to expect, so that they can then also share that understanding with our residents. So in Alpha, our residents can be sort of in their 90s. I think we've got residents in their hundreds as well in some of our schemes. So they need really careful, cautious guiding through the process. There's no point saying, you know, scan this code and you'll be able to see all about it, or log into our website. A lot of our residents still need a good old-fashioned bit of paper and a chat in the lounge with coffee and cake, obviously, which kind of gets our residents to the meetings, and they will need that several times over. Now, you may have completely different sorts of residents in your blocks of flats, but for us with sheltered housing, that was really important. And I would like to say at this point that the contractors from Rahul's team were really respectful, very clean, very tidy, entered into a lot of the events that were going on. So if there were coffee mornings, they would sort of join in and sort of share and actually, you know, get to know our residents during the time that they were working on site, which again kind of helps that process to go an awful lot more smoothly. And sort of following on from that, communication, name badges, so people know who it is that's wandering around the corridors in their scheme. I think some of our residents are quite nervous about strangers on site, quite rightly. So getting to know them and what they were doing and why they were there was quite important. And I think that one of the big things that is probably still not quite resolved for us is that switching tariffs and potentially switching suppliers, and explaining to our residents what the benefits of switching and what the requirements were. So they wouldn't get the benefits if they didn't switch the tariff. They didn't have to switch suppliers, although there were some really brilliant incentives to be able to do that. But that is often met with suspicion and sort of, this must be too good to be true. We can't sort of persuade people against their wishes or their will to do that. So that's why that kind of slow drip approach to this is what it means, this is what you need to do, this is how you get the saving. And that opportunity to sell fuel back to the grid is incredibly unusual for a scheme of flats. And again, people thinking this must be too good to be true, which it's not. It's absolutely not. But it has been a challenge for us. And I think if we were to do another scheme, then actually we would need to explain that. And as Ramin said, we've got our new build scheme, which is footings in the ground at the moment, and that will be different because that will come, when people move in, that decision will already been made. But with retrofit, where it requires change and kind of a different approach, we do need to be working really sort of carefully with our residents right from the go. I think that's my second slide, so I think I'm handing over now. Yes.
Thank you so much, Sally and Ramin, for the wonderful words and the nice presentation. I'll start from my side. I would like to do a small recap on our previous presentation. I know we have been talking about eco, SHF in the last previous scheme, the blending. Again, this is a part continuation on how we can try to do that innovation, how we can make sure it is pumping more money onto it so we can achieve the target or the carbon net zero target, what we need to achieve. So basic recap, we were discussing about Eco4 last presentation, and SHF and how the blending can work. We were discussing about insulation measures and ventilation getting done under the SHF, under the cost cap. We do have to achieve a C rating under the SHF. Do not consider you do not have to, but sometimes depending on how worse the EPC rating are, there is a cost cap we can apply for it. And if it doesn't go up to a C, that's when we from the SHF funding get stuck with D/E rating. This is where we can blend that scheme under the eco, and we can do an additional measures such as air source heat pumps, solar PV panels, or electric storage heaters under the Eco4 scheme, so that's not a duplicate measure we are claiming, and we can get that extra additional funding. If not, we can do a set of properties under SHF, and social housings can benefit by doing another set of properties which is not included in the SHF wave, can benefit from extra additional Eco4 funding. This is what we have been. This is a small recap from the last slide. So continuing on to how a social housing or an installer, when they're looking into it, how can you benefit and what kind of projects we need to do. If you go to the next slide, please. Ofgem innovation measures. This is the main part where each and every properties, when we do some jobs, if you apply the right innovation measures under the Eco4, you would get extra funding out of it. So Ofgem has published an innovation measure document on their official website. There are currently 41 manufacturers or measures which got approved under the innovation measures. Some measures are under 25% uplift and some are under 45% uplift. 25% are standard uplift. 45 is a substantial uplift, which means you/tenant would be getting more benefit out of it. These are to intensivize these technologies to improve the tenant outcomes. Often always approve a measure to ensure it's benefiting the tenants who are staying in the property rather than benefiting an installer or any of the manufacturers. So applying these measures, we need to make sure they are compliant to past 2035 and the trust mark standards, because these goes through a deep check within the Ofgem, within the Kiva, BBA to get everything approved. But you need to ensure any measures we are recommending, they should be complied under 2035 trust mark standards up to the building regulations. How this uplift applies, there is a difference in, or people understand how this uplift applies to the whole project scope. Just like I've mentioned, Eco have got two scorings. One is a partial project score and another is a full project score. The partial project scores applies to measures, while full project scores applies to the whole property. If you complete the whole measures, which means D, E, F, G, if that goes to a C rating, we achieve a full project score. If we can't achieve by any reason and we have to stop the project in between, we can still submit it, but that has to be a measure specific. That's where the partial project score applies it. Again, the GB scheme works on a partial project score. If you do individual measures such as cavity, loft, internal wall insulation, when you submit a job, it goes as a partial project score. Depending on it, how the innovation measure scoring applies is every measure such as solar PV panels, air source heat pumps, boilers, cavity wall, loft insulation have got their individual scores depending on number of the total floor area, what is the current EPC and the end EPC would look like. So based on that, the partial project score is set up for every measures. When this 25% and 45% get applies, they applies on the partial project score. They never applies on the full project score. So if there is 1,000 points on a full project score, the 45 never applies on a full project score. It has to go for that individual measure where the innovation has been applied to. So that gets applied to individual PPS for the measure. Once it's been applied, whatever the increase on that uplift is then added onto the full project score. So there is a differential on how the scoring is applied, but there are calculators, Eco4 calculators available in online where you can check it and how the score is applying. Again, all these innovations should be applied through each and every measures. If you go to the next slide, please. What are the examples of innovation measures? So today I will be focusing on one main measure, which is soul share, where I can explain you how that works in. However, there are certain examples on the innovation measures, such as soul share, which have got 45% uplift. Ariston SOC pump, that's an SOC pump with 25% uplift. Switchy, 25%. EWI system with the Saltum manufacturer, that's a 25. More and more measures are on the often documentations. When I say 45%, 25%, each have got its own benefit. Some SOCPM have got 45%, where the social housings or the tenants, they benefit from 10 years of servicing and maintenance with 10 years of warranty on that product. This is what often applies. So when we use that innovation measure under Eco4, you get a whole package of 10 years of servicing and maintenance. Similar with the Soul Share Allume, because why that's a uplift, it is applying to the whole flats. Last time when I explained to you, I said one soul share gives an innovation for 10 flats it is getting connected to. So you don't have to install 10 soul shares or 10 inverters to apply for it. You can use that one soul share with that single serial number, which can apply to the 10 flats because that's been connected or commissioned to that 10 flats. This is the way how the innovation measures would work, and this is the way how it help the social housing tenants and the social housing landlords to reap the benefit of maintenance, servicing packages, and any extra data they would be getting from this system. If we go to the next slide, please. We are looking onto the tenant benefits with these measures. Again, any measures approved by the Ofgem have got its own pros. Like some of them are lower energy bills because they might be good at U value for some of the insulation works. Some of them are improved comfort and control, which might be the SOCPM smart thermostat, where it can control everything individually to increase that comfort, the control lies within the customer or the system itself, such as some SOCPM have got AI system, which sends a report by itself, which tells the customer you're spending too much on your heating bill, reduce your solar degree or reduce your heating temperature, which will help you to save this much amount of money. So these kind of details helps the tenants. The additional income, for especially on the flat properties where we are using soul share, can help people to get additional income for all the flat owners. So it's not just the homeowners benefiting from the panels, it's also the flat owners or the flat tenants also benefiting from the smart export guarantee, where an export of surplus solar energy is being sent to the grid and they can get paid, just like Raman mentioned, with Eon at 16.5 pence per kilowatt hour. This benefits the customer to get extra money onto their bank account, which can go into their pot of energy bills, which will save them not to become a zero bills, but at least that will help them to contribute towards their bill on the future bill payments. It also increased the enhanced EPC rating, such as Soul Share, using Soul Share on an EPC for this flat have proven increasing minimum 5 to 30 SAP points, depending on what their pre-EPR is. If some properties or flats with no cavity wall insulation and low loft insulation with all storage heaters turns out to be an E or an F rated projects, we have done them properties by insulating the cavity, loft insulation, ventilation upgrades, Soul Share, and upgraded the heating system, and the end results for them are B/A rating. Because of the system, what we have used, you have used a maximum loft roof area to provide up to 3.2 kilowatt for each flat. Using the Soul Share have benefited to increase that EPC rating, and all of these benefits also contribute towards one, what we are all working towards is a net zero goal. This will help to reduce the carbon emissions. The more we use fit all of these properties rather than skipping flats, we can start doing flats using the Soul Share will help and every tenants to get their benefits, will help everyone to contribute towards the net zero goal. Next slide, please. We are going to touch on some of the case studies right now. I have got two case studies. One is Willow Court, where we have worked, that's one of the Alpha Living Houses project we have done at the start, the first Soul Share project. This was commissioned in the month of December. What we have done in this project is a ventilation upgrade, high heat retention upgrade, and solar Soul Share system, where we have provided each customers or each tenants with at least 2.8 kilowatt has been the lowest, and 3.2 on some of the flats being the highest, depending on how the Soul Share have been commissioned. The scheme, what we have done in together was 95 kilowatt of solar PV panels going across 37 flats using the Soul Share. This was commissioned in the last year, December. We have generated per flat, this is the data from the smart meter, where it has generated 2,560 kilowatt hour and exported 1,102 kilowatt hour within the 9 months. This is the data taken in the last month while we were there doing some more checks. The pre-EPC and the post-EPCs for these ones, they were ranging between E and D, and they have gone up to A/B rating. Just like I've mentioned, 26 flats have achieved an A rating EPC and 11 flats have achieved the B rating EPCs. This project was completely delivered to Alpha Living House at a zero cost, and this measure was fully funded. Even though they were flat roof, we had to include the angle recliners and everything. This was kind of a bigger project for us. At the start. However, we have dealt with this customer. The picture on the right depicts one of our residential activity we did. This is the Christmas event we have done after the install, explaining customers everything. This was a photo taken during that time. We have got our installers even in this event where they were trying to make sure the tenants are happy, because we need to ensure they're completely happy on how we're trying to do the work. Once the work has been finished, are we giving them enough support, everything. So that's one of the pictures we have done as a residential activity. If you go to next slide, it will showcase the Sol Center. So that's a Soul Center, which Raman was discussing. How would you look into a Soul Center? What kind of data it would provide you? Basically, you can see on the left-hand side, the data it says about the solar consumed, what is the energy demand, which is the total solar created, what are the solar delivered and been exported. Technically, when we will send this slide across to you so you can go into the deep data. But with this data, and if we look into an average seg rating, you can see the customers have total consumed around 5,240 pounds worth of electricity from the solar. And if all these electricity has been sold to the grid, in reality, they should be benefiting from 6,733 pounds. This is in total for that 37 flats, which means each residence would be benefiting minimum 431 pounds in terms of the whole 9 months. Seg works in a different way. However, up for the 9 months, that's the annual projections what we are looking at. This way, because the tenants are benefiting, the housing associations are benefiting, we can see there is a usage of solar power of up to 5,240, which means that's actually deducting from the actual electricity bill. This is where we are pushing for these kind of measures to be used up to full extent so everyone can benefit out of it. If you go to the next slide, it shows an example of Oaklands, which was commissioned in the month of June. And within 4 months, what we have calculated, it is around, generated 15,298 kilowatt. That's in total what it has got generated, and what has been consumed by the resident is 37%, with export to the grid is 62%. Just within a 4 month of span, we can see there is a good generation of solar power coming into it. Again, the customer saving in total for the whole flat where we have done, which is typically the top and the mid floors, they have saved around 1,617 in the span of 3 to 4 months. And if they have exported and they are on to the SEC application, they would have generated in total of £3,739 worth of money coming into the bank account. This is a whole flats again, not individual. Individually, we would be looking at minimum £103 savings from the SEC application. How the SEC application works, again, I've been telling you SEC. When any properties, even if flats or houses, once you have fitted a solar PV panels, we from our installer specific, we tell the customers you can benefit from the SEC. Once we have commissioned all the jobs, it's the installer's responsibility or a housing association to ensure the customers get into a SEC application, because every kilowatt which the solar is generating, which is not used by the property, is sold to the grid for free. If they're not on the SEC application, they won't benefit from it. So this is why we need to ensure this information has been passed across. With whichever suppliers they are, they need to get into the SEC application. We just need to provide 3 basic simple documentation: a G99 or a G98, an MCS documents, and the document which says the solar belongs to them and it's not being belonged to anyone else, or the solar belongs to the landlord and the landlord have asked them to apply for the SEC application. As long as that's done, it's much more easy for any tenants/landlords to benefit from the SEC application. If you go on to the next slide, that's the another case study we have done for Autumn Close. Again, 75 kilowatt solar PV panels fitted across 22 flats. It's a bungalow properties. Generation shows around 2,000 kilowatt hour generated per flat, and half of that generated is been exported, which the tenant have saved around £150 per year from via SEC and the reduced bill. So these are some of the properties we have done. We have completed around 10 to 12 soul share projects across our portfolio, and this is the same kind of generation which is helping every tenants. If you go on to the next slide, which is integrating these innovation measures with the Eco4. How can we do an integrating an innovation measure? It always depends on the total funding we can do on that project, and it always depends how I can get extra benefit by doing an innovation measures. So, for example, if I do a sole share across 20 flats, and that's a 45%, the minimum increase in pounds value is between £4,000 to £8,000, depending on the pre-EPR, depending on the funding scoring limited. But each flats can benefit from £4,000 to £10,000, which means if you consider there are 20 flats, that's 80,000 extra money which is getting pumping in, which we can push it across through, put more panels on the roof and give more to the residents. So this is where the integrating innovation measure is a bigger section. You need to ensure every measure you're fitting is approved by your Ofgem as per the documentation. You need to sequence the job right, in the sense you need to ensure every job or the measures have been completed so you can receive the highest EPC to get more funding and to get more, maximize your uplift funding from the EcoPod. Again, when you're working on it, you need to ensure you're working with the right partnerships who understand all the suppliers, who understand how to secure the funding or increase the funding. Because that's the certain sections we can fail around, where sometimes if you give 1 kilowatt for each flat, will give you lesser SAP points as compared to a 3 kilowatt to each flat. This is why I'm trying to say you need to increase the maximum effort. You need to make sure the whole roof, if it's possible for us to flush down with all the solar panels, give more benefits to the tenants, will give more benefits to the installers or the housing association or the providers to put more money onto their uplift, and that can give you more funding. Once you have done a pilot project, replicate that process, which will help you to understand this is how it needs to get work on, and we need to increase it as much as possible. If you go into the next slide, we'll mention how you can strategize these for the large scale retrofit. Every time any projects you're doing, especially for the sole share or if you're doing for houses, you need to ensure you're considering the whole block in that flat, and you need to consider the whole flats in that block, and you need to consider the whole houses in that row. So technically, that's how we can make sure what are we doing, how can we reduce the cost or reduce the the expenses by contributing, planning all together at once, rather than doing individual properties, which is going to cost us more. That will end up losing more money, but not doing the right measures to the tenants and the social housing providers. You need to collaborate with the right technology providers, installers, and suppliers who understand all this information, who understand how these needs to be worked across and how much funding we can secure at the max to make this work completely. The resident engagement must be done, and this is always a must thing under the large scale retrofit, because they need to understand what they're getting fitted, because always the customer have got a preference. I need this associate pump or this boiler. It's the installers or the provider's responsibility to understand, engage with the customers, tell them why this is an innovative measure, why this will benefit you, and how you can get benefit on a future scale because of the 10 years of warranties. This is an AI system, you can remotely fix it, everything. We can help it out accordingly. Always, certain manufacturers have got their own data and monitoring. Just like SoulShare have got Soul Center, you can easily identify if there is an issue. You can also check how much it is getting generated. You can see this is contributing towards the net zero at the end. So if I can say Willow Court have generated around 100,000 kilowatt hour, this is actually benefiting, and this goes across to the carbon reduction plan for alpha living houses to understand how this is working, how we can replicate that model. That kind of a data and monitoring will help you out. Similar for air source heat pump, there are data and monitoring available, heating controls, data and monitoring available. So you need to ensure you select the right material, you select the right data and monitoring, and you need to ensure that's been working for your housing association, and how we can use that same model across every other projects and benefit it more. Funding pipeline, always you need to make sure you're aligning multiple funding streams. You don't just look for one funding stream to say if it's possible for us to do an SHF. Rather than ignoring it, you can do the whole project under Eco4 and you can get it fully funded rather than putting it to SHF, whereas you can put other properties onto the SHF and utilize that funding as much as possible. In this scenario, if you use that under the large scale retrofit, you will benefit more. So that's all from my side. I would hand over this to Ramin for the last slide.
Basically, the summary, I've already highlighted this. So I would like to say the government now has a tendency to keep social housing separate from Eco4 funding. We are organising a site visit next month with DESNES, hopefully with Ofgem, with all the stakeholders, to showcase successful case studies. So to create a platform that can talk to landlords, mainly residents, and see the challenges and the impact of retrofit and everything. So in the next consultation period, I would also encourage you guys to share your thoughts, because we believe alongside working social housing fund, you can easily benefit from Eco4 funding. So for social housing properties, not only blocks, but also for individual properties. I'm sure that Rahul and his team would be more than happy to help. And you can trust us as a partner, not just as a supplier. We can arrange the feasibilities for you. We can organize site visits, get formal quotations, help from a supply chain perspective, and secure more funding to upgrade your properties at no cost to you, just repeating zero value contract. Sometimes there is some contributions, but I'm sure that Rahul and his team will explain why there is a need for the contribution. So thank you for your time. I think we hit the target corner.
Perfect. Thank you very much to our presenters today.